Former flat earthers. What made you come round? I talked to a flat earther about my job working for a company that tracks ship locations, routes, and speeds by satellite. We also had ways of monitoring carbon emissions based on fuel consumption and known weather conditions. None of this would work at all if the Earth was flat. Not a jot of it. I could only explain the most basic concepts. But it was enough for him to understand and realize that I was right and that he'd been convinced by someone who had no practical experience of the spherical nature of the Earth. I think that's what really did it. My experience was really tangible. This happens, then we measure this, etc., etc. No theory. Just practice. A bit like showing a child a rock dropping to the ground in order to explain gravity. Rather than giving them the whole theoretical shebang. You know? Undefined. The Mobius strip earthers had more compelling arguments. No. There would be no need for arguments since we're all on the same side. I was going to argue with you. But while I composed my reply, I came around. Kyrie Irving hasn't been doing press conferences. Man's just disappeared from the court like he fell off the disc. He be wishin' the earth was round now. Quote I got from somewhere. For 5 years I believed the earth was flat. Then I turned 6. Eli 5. You'll understand when you're older. I convinced a flat earther. Temporarily. By asking him if it was possible for a sphere to be so large that you could not tell it was a sphere by simply being on the surface of it. It took him a while. I used an analogy of an extremely long line that was so slightly curved you could not tell so by looking at a small section of it. Eventually he said yes to the sphere and I told him that was how big the Earth is. A few days later he reverted. Most of these people aren't mentally stable. They believe in a lot of conspiracies. Undefined. What I like to do is use telescopes. This telescope is strong enough to see distant stars and galaxies. Yes? Okay. Look out this direction across the ocean. Can you see Europe? Undefined. Stars are not as far as NASA tell us. They are much closer than Europe. On the edge of the dome. Actually, no matter what you say, they'll find a nonsense explanation. Until finally get to because God made it this way. Which is the main reason why they believe in flat Earth anyways. Look. It's really easy. If the Earth is flat, there would be an edges. And there would be a peeping Disney park at the edge. And we could bungee jump off the side and paraglide into the void, etc., etc. Someone would be making an absolute speep ton of money off of it, if it existed. Guess what? Nobody is doing that, and in this world where absolutely everything is exploited for profit, if no one is making money off of it, it no edge. Not flat. Get a clue. Let's not forget it'd be the cleanest and success guaranteed suicide. I mean, depending what's down there. Unless it's an endless void and all you do is keep falling until you starve. You know what? Never mind. And if that was the case, it would be the best way to dispose of toxic waste and garbage. Just yeet it into the peeping void. I watched a documentary about flat earthers called Truth Behind the Curve, and my analysis from watching that these flat earthers are a group of people who found a community to be a part of. It's a shame their community is based on a lie. But I saw a bunch of people who were to be part of a community. Most of the people were social awkward and whatnot. And so an opportunity to be an influential figure within the community, so they doubled down on their flawed logic. The more against you are of them, the harder they rep their flatness. TLDR. I see flat earthers as a group of lonely people looking for a community that will accept them. Undefined. They actually did an experiment. And that if they got one result, the Earth was flat. If they got the other, it was round. Experiments showed that the Earth is drumroll round. They claimed it was human error that caused the wrong result. They also spent $20,000 on a very precise gyroscope. Of course it showed a 15-degree-per-hour drift, thus proving the spherical Earth. They didn't accept this result and blamed it on picking up the rotation of the heavens. So they did another experiment with the gyroscope in a zero Gauss chamber so that the sky wouldn't affect it. Same result. And they still claim something else must have been wrong. There is nothing that will convince these people. At least these deeper entrenched bigger name people are too far in. And can't ever leave their group that they are so tied to. I also believe a lot of the higher up people absolutely do not believe the Earth is flat and are just grifting people for the money. I was debating a flat earther in Mexico. And I asked him about how GPS worked if there were no satellites. He said that they had devices in the ground to route you. I told him the Mexican government is barely able to put decent water pipes in the ground. Would he really think they had the tech to put routing devices in the ground? He chuckled with a 1,000-mile gaze. I mean, with all the money go to routing devices in the ground, no wonder there is no money left. Speep, he's got a point. A serious answer here. The thing that made me stop was just the question, why would NASA lie to you? I will try replying to all of y'all, but we'll go to a study hall, so I'll reply later. This a solid point. There's no way 70,000 scientists could keep it a secret. Undefined. Yes, they did a great job at keeping it a secret while it was happening. But it inevitably came out. My point is addressing that this secret would be impossible to continue to stay secret, especially during the current information age. Second, undefined. That's the biggest reason for me to not believe so many conspiracy theories. Especially major ones like a flat earth. We know how often things leak about everything. And suddenly a collection of tens of thousands of people are all gonna keep this one big secret? The inclined seat conformed perfectly to his body. Strategically placed in the cockpit so he could reach no buttons with outstretched arms. The straps anchored him firmly in place. They were uncomfortable but necessary. The engine burst to life with a roar that burned out all the other audio. The vibrations tore through his body and he felt his body sink back into the seat as the G-force began to take hold. The captain was watching the readouts on the LED displays and monitoring their trajectory as the acceleration began to peel his thoughts away. There was no more room in his brain. It had been filled by pure fear. The boosters grew with greater ferocity as they lifted higher into the sky. The sun beaming down on the left side of the shuttle. But faster they went. Through max Q and higher into the stratosphere until the engines grew quieter. The air more silent. And the vibrations became less violent. They were approaching space. The final frontier. An hour later. And with the path of the shuttle a success, he noticed as his raw emotions withdrew that his body felt funny. Head hair drifted aimlessly across his eyes as the captain's pen hovered in mid-air, and he knew the impossible was true. His childhood dream. He was in space. Weightless. The captain turned around to him. And motioned him to unhook his seatbelts. He did as he was commanded. They both left their chairs and glided over to the tiny glass windows to overlook the magnificence of Earth. "What do you think now?" said the captain. He recoiled in horror. It couldn't be. NASA had replaced the windows with high-definition screens in order to perpetrate their lies that the world was spherical. Those bastards. On Behind the Curve on Netflix, two of the flat earthers accused the moon of being a giant TV screen controlled by NASA. You aren't too far off. It could be. Once I think I saw a Windows alert screen pop up on the moon and a cursor quickly clicked on the OK button. Fools. They should only apply updates on a new moon.